Absolutely. Okay. Okay. You said a lot there. You said a lot, and I'm feeling what you said. You know, the first time I got a chance to meet you, or actually I heard you speak. I don't think I got to meet you that night, but I met you at a sad occasion. Actually, I met you in Boynton Beach at the musical celebration for Corey Jones, the friend of mine who was killed by the police officer there in Palm Beach Gardens. And this was, if I remember correctly, it was in October. And I got a chance to hear you speak, and you spoke very boldly on the issues that are facing the African American community. You spoke very boldly against police brutality and the shooting itself, the actual case that was right in front of us. Tell us more about your advocacy for Black Lives Matter, the different things that you faced. How can you help? Because that's the first context that I got to know you in.
Right.
What do you say to issues like that? And then we can definitely keep going to other things.
Well, I think the principal thing here, Benjamin, is that we've got to figure out how to transition from protesting to proposals. Because, see, all we do is rail against a system that everybody will admit is skewed against African Americans, especially poor African Americans. I mean, so let's not forget that there's an economic factor that's factored into that. But the reality is, everybody and their great grandpa knows that there are prosecutors who use their discretion in favor of wealthy folks and white folks, and not in favor of black folks. We know that there are judges who use their discretion in precisely the same way. They throw the book at a young black man because they see that he's bound to be a thug anyway, so what difference does it make if we throw him in jail now? But they see a young white male do the same things, and they're going to give him, be lenient. Well, while that may seem justified in that one particular case, if you look at it in the aggregate from 36,000 feet, what you see is a pattern develop. And we've never, ever held anybody to task for that, right? And we've never had the mechanism to do so. So what I'm proposing, one of the things that I propose, is to have a mechanism to gather data on every prosecutor and every judge, that they have to show and account how they use their discretion. Okay. And so let's just say there's a little interface, like an iPad or whatever, a tablet. And for each defendant or each accused person before them, they have to input how they exercise their discretion in that case. And that gets aggregated at DOJ. And if a pattern emerges, not only can we see that pattern for a prosecutor or for a judge, but we can do something about it. The first thing we can do is bring it to their awareness. We can let them know that they have a pattern, because some people don't even know that. And then we can train them. We can say, hey, you do seem to have some bias, and it may not necessarily be against African Americans. It could be against Latinos. It could be against men. I mean, let's not forget that the criminal justice system is much harder on men than it is on women. So let's own that too. But let them know what their biases are. Give them some training. Give them some real help in how to become cognizant of that. And then if they continue to show those biases, start taking steps to remove them.
So. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because they serve, ultimately, just to finish out the thought, they serve at the discretion of the population that they're supposed to be serving, right? So if we see a hanging judge who just so happens to only be hanging black folks, we should be able to remove that judge. And we are not in a position now to do so, because we can never make a case that really sticks against that judge unless he says something really stupid in a tweet or an email. But it's not tweets and emails that reveal that judges have biases. It's the number of black men in jail that reveals that.
So yeah, and so that's what I'm here. So you're saying, from your perspective, one of the reasons that you're running for office is because you want to see some actual policies take form, instead of in addition to, and not to replace, but after we get done protesting, where are the policy statements? Where's the legislation that's actually going to affect and change the paradigm?
Exactly. So if we want to see a reduction in racial bias in our judicial system, we ought to put something on the table that has the hope of actually effectuating that, right? And I've not heard that from other candidates. So I'm going to put a proposal on the table, and if somebody says, hey, I'm going to shoot holes in your idea, Pam, I'm like, cool, because at least we're talking about an idea. Right. At least we're talking about a proposal. And I think that as a leader, that's what I'm trying to be here, a leader on this topic, I can put these ideas out, start some really intelligent conversations about this in the spirit of goodwill, and say, hey, let's gather a critical mass behind this idea, because really the power has always been in the people's hands. We send these people to Washington. We can send them home.
Absolutely. You know what? Absolutely. I can't agree with you more right there. That's something that I don't think people realize. And that's something that I don't think the Democratic establishment realizes, right? I know you're running in a tough race down there. You're running in a tough race against the establishment pick, which is Patrick Murphy.
Right.
You're running against a progressive sweetheart. Well, I guess he probably wouldn't appreciate me calling him a sweetheart, but still, he's a progressive darling,
Right.
Alan Grayson. But you are a progressive yourself, and you not only fight for African American issues, but you also stand for just look at the website. Actually, don't let me put words in your mouth. Tell me all the other ways that you are a progressive candidate.
I'm a progressive candidate because I want to put real proposals on the table on how to incentivize more corporate profit ending up in the hands of employees. Because, you know, it's always